Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
There'll come those times in your life where you're just doing life. It's okay, but there's something more out there. And how do you get there? A lot of times we look at it and we're like, how am I going to do that? I really want to change careers or I want to change relationships. And it's not easy to figure out on your own. For that, there is a coach, a life coach. Specifically, he's a transformational coach. But how does that work when you work with somebody like that? We're going to unpack that today with Zen. He is Zen, literally. He's right here. Zen, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, Steve. Glad to be back again. And yeah, coaching's kind of a really nebulous thing, especially transformational coaching, because it deals with much more of what's going on inside the individual as opposed to the exterior world and the functionality that one has in it. And ultimately, both have to bridge, or you're missing something, right?
Now, what's the difference? And I don't have this answer. That's why I'm throwing it to you. The difference
That's why
between
I'm here, right?
I know you'll have the answer. The difference between a life coach and a transformational coach, because I would think if you have a life coach, you are looking to make a transformation. Otherwise, why would you have a coach? I'm not really sure.
Right. Well, there's many different types and styles of coaching differentiated from therapy and counseling, right? And there's some confusion between those two at some point because there's this idea that you're going to get therapy or that you're going to feel better because of the coaching. And that's not necessarily the case, because with the coaching, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be stretched, you're going to be asked to step into or lean into the fears in your life in order to overcome them. And that's a pretty scary situation for most people at the onset, right? It sounds much worse than it is. Now, what happens though is the difference between a life coach and a transformational coach is life coach deals with your work-life balance for the most part, right? So there's some structure, there's some action plans, there's some exercises that one can go through in order to assess, analyze, extrapolate, decide what to do, and then synergize those things in the outer world, right? It doesn't really touch what's going on inside, although it does briefly. Now, from the inner perspective, there's a whole lot going on that we don't talk about, right? Sometimes we're even afraid to talk to others about what's going on inside of us, the kind of thoughts we have, the kind of fears we entertain, because we just don't want to share that because it's way too vulnerable, right? Well, with my work, and of course being Zen, I'm just kind of a what is kind of guy, we dive into that inner environment. And through the conversations that we have, and they're not that demanding, except that you've got to be authentic. And when those questions are asked, we dive deep. If I get a cursory answer, I'm going to know what that is, right? I'm going to feel that's you're kind of, you're avoiding still. And let's dive a little deeper. And I make it safe and comfortable to do so, because that's really the environment that we need to have in order to expand our awareness. First of all, what's going on inside, analyze ourselves, realize that, these are the thoughts that I'm thinking, and they may not be congruent with what my real beliefs are, right? We call that cognitive dissonance.
Wow. So what you're saying, Zen, is what we think we want may not be truly what we want or in alignment with what's in us.
Precisely. Now, and you're going to feel that, right? There's a thing that Matthias DeMont brought out on an interview with Tucker Carlson some time ago, and that's we seek for empathic resonance, right? Now, what's that mean? That means you feel the truth for you. It's going to have a sensation inside of you that is totally recognizable and anchors in you with that awareness that, oh yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
Can't avoid it. And it's okay, right? Nobody's perfect. And to be able to expose oneself in a vulnerable situation and reveal what's really going on inside of you for whatever reason doesn't matter, right? We're not there for therapy. We're there to make a choice of what to think next, right? Let's say so in a conversation, there's a habit that comes up that's incongruent, right? You say one thing, but you do another. So we take a look at that. So what are you really after there? What's your goal in that situation? And how can we better align how you're thinking and feeling about it with the actual achievement of that goal? So it's kind of like the old entrepreneurial thing, start with the end in mind, right? You vision how you want to think, feel, be in any environment, because what you do anywhere, you will do everywhere. So it's those subtle shifts in how you think and how you choose to take in the environment that you're in and interpret that in the way you feel about it. And that's where those subtle changes can make a huge difference in what happens around you.
Now, are you saying, Zen, that we reverse engineer it? This is what our goal is. We've identified what the goal is, and we're there. We got it, scored it. It's good. We really didn't, but that's what we're thinking. Yeah. Now we work our way back on how to get there.
Right.
Is that seem reasonable in terms of?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's a process for doing that.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Of course. What if somebody has, call them limiting beliefs, or there's things blocking them from their past that they might not even be aware of, preventing them from getting to this this thing that they want, new job, different mindset, whatever it might be. Are you able to figure those things out or help them, or it doesn't matter? We're gonna work our way through it, put away some of the fear, all of that. Fear is probably the thing that holds everybody back.
Oh, yeah. Yes, and it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Right? Because once you access that, you're aware of it, right? Because a lot of these things you're not completely or fully aware of, because we like to avoid things,
Sure.
right? At all costs. And we'll fight to the death to avoid things. And so what we do is we let go of that fear of death, first of all, and we address those things in just matter-of-fact ways of, okay, this seems like this. Is that true? And that gives an opportunity of, yeah, okay, that's cool. Don't judge yourself, right? We're the worst at self-deprecating,
Oh, sure.
right? And so those kinds of internal feelings, we're like we're a body of water, and we already know how thoughts affect water. So how does your internal world, your inner dialogue, affect your body of water? Right. And you're going to feel that change as you think more congruent with who you are and the being that you are within. Because ultimately, all we really want in life is to love and be loved. Well, there's many variations of that, right? A lot of them conditional. So we work through that as well. And then through one of the ways that I first get an inkling of the challenges that you may be facing is through a 13-page survey that I use. And I've developed this over 20 years of coaching to dig deep and get a cursory view of how you communicate, how you think, what your goals are, how that's congruent, what you want to do in life, how you see yourself in the community, and so on and so forth. And so there's this, big umbrella that then we carry around with us for a little bit while we figure out how to stop the rain.
Is that something that you go deep with when you work with somebody? So yeah, I'm trying to best describe. It's a lot of times we've got so much going on in our heads. We're just trying to do life. We know there's more out there. We don't know how to
Mhm.
get to that there. And we're trying to figure it all out. Do you help somebody put the pieces in perspective and really kind of figure
Absolutely.
out what's in? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Right. As their pieces, I help expose those pieces. And then I help to reassemble them in a more congruent order with what their goals, dreams, desires are that actually fit and are achievable. Then we back it out into a step-by-step action plan that includes all of those things on a personal and professional perspective. Now, you mentioned something earlier about, how this, thoughtmosphere works, right? And essentially, if you're familiar with a tesseract,
What's it?
it's
What's it
it's
called?
a tesseract. It's a geometric form. It's actually a cube that is constantly morphing and folding in on itself, right? It's a quantum physics model, if you will. So understanding that this vision that we're seeking is also seeking us, right? Because we've
Hmm.
created it, right? This is our
Hmm.
vision. We've thrown it out in front of us. So it's like a tesseract.
I
We
never thought
toss
of
it
it
out
that
and
way. I never thought of it. It's also seeking us.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's that other part. That's the other half of the equation of manifestation and creation, right? Because we second guess ourselves most often, and we're like, oh no, that's not going to happen, right? And yet, wait a minute, this is really what we just set in motion to happen. So how would why would we want to avoid that, right? And we just don't realize that as we think, so shall we be. Gosh, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
That's a little old, right? And so in this process, then as we're embracing what's coming toward us, we're stepping into what we previously created in our mental construct.
I love that thought because it makes it feel much more attainable when you think that you have a thought, idea for a business. It's there. You don't put up blocks. Let's say you're doing it right, right?
Right.
But the fact that it's there looking to find you makes it seem so much easier to attain, as opposed to you just, I'm trying to get there. I believe I can do it.
Yeah, there's a Yoda moment. There
Hmm.
is no try.
Ah, it will happen.
Yeah, because you're making the effort to do so. Now, time frame is really the only malleable substance in there, and it's how well you pay attention to what's in front of you, because as you're creating this, you've also created what I've heard referred to as a momentum tunnel, right? So you've entered this tunnel. You've begun to create this concept, vision, business, whatever it is, relationship. And so as you enter that tunnel, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, says, oh, yeah, you've made the choice. Now we're going to help support that because you're making the effort to do so. You've poured your energy into this direction. So what's going to happen? You're going to have things, how are you going to recognize it, I guess, would be the better question.
Hmm.
And in that, there is the development of further self-awareness. What's that mean? Well, you're aware of being able to be quiet and observant. And most of those tools, people, I like to say people, places, and things, right? You're facilitating a new order of them. So they're going to show up, opportunities, doors for you to step through that have probably a fear in place that you've got to step through in order to gain what you're looking for. And so as you continue in this process, and everything's a process, right? Once you learn the process, you get more comfortable with it. The fears become less because you have that experience, not a belief system. You have an experience system now of success. So you know what to anticipate. It's all going to be, results are all going to be different. However, because you now have this direct experience of the process that it works, you have a little more faith, trust, and love in yourself and the results you're going to get.
Tell me about that experience
Oh,
that you're referring to. Yeah. Yeah. I have the picture, but I just want to know a little bit more.
well, for one thing, it's full of awe, right? Because you really don't understand the completeness of it, although the experience of it is, hey, it works, right? I don't need to know the infinite details of how. That's my job to understand that. And I've spent over 40 years inquiring within and looking at the outer world and how it reflects those questions as answers. So as a client, then you would learn how to do that too. It just depends on how deep a dive you want to have into yourself. It may just need to be at a certain level to get yourself comfortable and moving forward, or you may want to dive in a little bit deeper and explore the inner worlds that are available, and then learn how to bridge those with your outer professional life. And I have
When
a
you say,
podcast that I talk to people about it.
I
Regarding
want to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
What's the inner world we talk about?
Well, consider this, we live half outside and half inside, although we may not think about that because there's always stuff going on in the inside, whether you got your eyes closed or not. Right? That's another dimension. Those inner worlds, we're taught through all the ancient texts and scriptures and sages and soothsayers and all those kinds of folks that there's something there. There's many worlds available that we're unaware of. Why? Because we don't get quiet enough to experience them. We don't go inside. We don't take that time to become silent, to become available to that. One of the techniques that I use is a really simple one, is just putting your fingertips together and feeling your heartbeat in them. Right? Once you reach that place, you're officially out of your head because you're feeling, you're not thinking. So the trick is to quiet the mind. This is what meditation is supposed to do, ultimately, right? Doesn't mean you want to stop the thoughts, because as long as you fight them, they're going to keep coming. You allow those thoughts to come, and eventually they quiet because you're not thinking, you're observing. When you've got that place where you deepen your breath and you're feeling your heartbeat. And you can initially feel it in your fingertips. However, if you practice it, you can eventually get your whole body to pulse, and you can feel it. As you're feeling that, then you will extend into those other worlds because there's nothing in the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And you said meditation, and that's word was on my mind when we talk about these, if we want to call it a different world. So when you go into a meditative state, you're in a place.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other ones that you can take us to, or feel? Is there a way of even describing them?
Inner worlds are often ineffable because there is such a time truncation of experience in them. Right? Time disappears. You can experience a whole event in a finger snap. And so how are you going to come back out and describe all that? This is where all the volumes of text come from the ancient worlds, right? And even in the current ones, right? Because it takes so much to explain or write about or discuss all of those things. And even though they are experienceable within, there's some nuggets from that we can bring into the outer world and make a connection with through the synchronicities that we experience and acknowledge. Right? We experience synchronicities, and there are serendipitous moments and synchronicities throughout our day. Most of the time, we just don't pay attention to them. It's that second guess thing, right?
Yeah.
We're always, we ask a question, we get an immediate answer, And we're like, no, no, that's not it. And we find something else. Well, that immediate answer is usually the most profound and correct. Or should I say correct and profound?
And that's our gut feeling that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Our intuition, the answer.
Yep.
Yeah. You have the answer, but I find you have to push all this other stuff out of the way.
It's not a push, right? You don't push or pull energy in these situations because that gets in the way, because that's a force of will, right? What you want is to align your will with what's best for you from your mind, body, spirit complex, right? Because there's this combination, it's a holistic unit in life. You're not separate. It's kind of like, saying, oh, you can separate yourself from work and go home. No, you can't. Right? That's a myth.
Yeah.
You don't. You're one person everywhere you go. What you do anywhere, you do everywhere. So make sure what you do anywhere is the best it can be.
And even though you're saying you're doing that, your subconscious is still thinking, work, work. You may see something and I'm not working this weekend. I'm not doing anything this weekend. You might
Yeah,
see
right.
something that triggers a subconscious response. You don't even know you're doing it, but you had a thought about work and maybe it'll come out in another way.
Mhm.
When we say, I said push these things out of the way, would it be a fair enough description to say filter them, filter those things out of the way so you can
Watch
quiet your
them.
mind?
I would say observe and watch, because in creating flow in your life, which is really what we're attempting to do, right? You have to embrace it all. You have to acknowledge what is with no resistance.
Hmm. Hmm. What if you have so much on your mind? How can you even meditate or get into another state when you have all that stuff going on? How would you describe being able to do both things? So we're not talking about pushing those things out of the way.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, back to that very simple, and everything's very simple. The simple exercise of putting your fingertips together and feeling
Okay.
your heartbeat,
Okay.
right? You get out of your head and you just be in that moment for as long as you can. Now, it takes practice. It is a discipline. You've got the tools, you still have to use them.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. This has gone deeper than I thought it would. I wasn't surprised.
Yeah,
But that's what makes you different because
absolutely.
a lot of life coaches, transformational coaches, a lot of good ones out there, sure. Um, I don't feel are going to give you the insight and the details on how to navigate this stuff where you do. And maybe it's me. I love logistics. I want to know how do I do
No, it's
this?
me actually, because of the life that I've led, and I've done it for myself.
Well, sure.
Right?
Okay.
I've experienced all of these things, so I can reflect and advise from that place. It's not theory. Nothing I do is theory. It's all worked for me. Otherwise, as a coach, I'm pretty worthless if I'd share something I haven't experienced now, wouldn't
Sure.
I? Right?
And when we say experience, we're also talking about feeling something, which you have along the way.
Mhm.
The moments we have left, how does somebody work with you, Zen?
Well, first of all, they'd visit my website and set up a free chat. And basically, that would be on Zoom. And we can have a face-to-face where you can get to know me, you can experience me in person, feel me out. I can also do the same with you, because not everybody is,
Mm-hmm.
is going to take to my style. Most do by the time they reach me, right? Because there's usually a lot of work that's taken place already
Mm-hmm.
before you come to me. I had one client waited 7 years, went through two other business coaches, and finally called me up, said, Zen, I think I'm ready for you. And in 3 months' time, we doubled his business
Wow.
in the off season. So those types of things do happen, right? There's evidence. Um, how else they would work with me is simply, engaging me. I've got individual breakthrough sessions, and they're a little pricey. However, that 13-page survey I was talking about is included prior to that. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. This isn't just a let's come have a talk.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Heavy lifting in the beginning that needs to take place for you to better understand what somebody's goals are and how they operate to help figure it out. Your website, let me remember, is it bethedream.com?
It's an easy one.
Yeah. Yeah. And a good one. You just, well, it's kind of what you said. What we're manifesting, we want to be the dream. The dream is there. We just need to connect to it. And that's where the Zen part comes in. Zen,
And
great
my
time.
dream is harmony among people and planet. So how do I achieve that? Well, I got to help other people find harmony within themselves.
Amen to that.
But I have to have it first.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you got, love the name Zen. Says it all about you. It's right there. And so many of us just need even a Zen. There's a Zen moment in your background there on the Zoom. Like I would love to be there. It just looks so relaxing. Yeah, with the water and the
I actually
trees.
took the photo. It's a place where I had a very intimate and highly spiritual moment in my life back in 1989, and with a group of people that was just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So these things do happen. We can have moments. We can have visitations from others, from those inner worlds that manifest in the outer world for a moment.
Sure.
So in order to fulfill an answer that we've held sacred, the question that we have.
Maybe we could dig into that next time in terms of getting answers elsewhere. Yeah, I find that fascinating. We say we have the answers, but sometimes we can be inspired in other areas. Maybe we could hit that.
Ask the right questions.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
That's where my expertise comes in, because I've been a radically curious since I was a kid. I was orphaned and adopted, and began my inner life early when I found out I was adopted at 4.5. Right? Wow. It's like, who's my parents? Do I have a father and mother in heaven? Can I talk to them? Well, it turns out I could. So those are part of what, my life experience has offered. And it sounds kind of weird to a lot of people. However, the direct experience isn't so weird at all. It's just amazing, and it's all filled.
And another way to look at things where sometimes we only see what we want to see, but there's other camera angles around our lives, and somebody like you can show them. Yeah.
We have all kinds of personal bias.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that come up in the sessions, and we explode those and expose them, and I should say expose and explode, right? Because we just make them disappear, because they're not of value to you or others when you're seeing things in a diminished way. Now, I mentioned that, I'm having conversations with a lot of others, and same topics of exploring the inner worlds, how they've made that practical in their outer worlds, whether they experienced it as a child, teenager, early adult, midlife, what have you. And these conversations give others an opportunity to see themselves and not feel wacky in doing so, right? Because they're not talking to somebody, they're listening to me talk to somebody else. And that podcast is One World in a New World, and it's on YouTube and all the other podcast channels as audio as well.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I'm looking forward next time we get to take another journey, I guess, into our minds. BeTheDream.com. Zen, great having you here today. Appreciate it.
It's been a great time, Steve, and I appreciate that you are one of those who inquires further and asks great questions so that we can explore and expand the audience view and what I can do for them as well.
I appreciate that. And I'm curious too, trying to figure this all out like everybody else. So we'll catch up next time. Thanks again.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.